Hello, everyone. The book we're going to be talking about today is one of the best anthologies I've read this year, and there's a special place in my heart for short story collections, and I'll talk about all of that in just a minute. But first, I want to remind you that my collection of short horror stories, it's called The Things That Happen at Night, is available at the link in the description for just $3. If you buy it, I hope you enjoy it. Now let's get on with the video. All right. So the book we're going to be talking about today is called The Cold Black. And the thing I really love about short horror stories is I think it's kind of an art form unto itself in the horror genre, because you kind of have to accomplish the same thing as a novel. Because really, when you're reading a horror book and the bad things happen to the people, if you don't really care about the characters, if the author hasn't quite built the world for you to care about and put these characters in that world, then when the bad things happen, it's just, okay, they died. Maybe you hated the characters and thought, okay, they deserve to die, you know? But a short story, it has to do everything a novel has to do, right? They got to build characters, they got to build worlds, but they got to do it in a short amount of words and pages. And that's why I think it's more like like I said, it's a different kind of art form than writing a novella or maybe a full-length novel, because you only have a limited amount of words and pages to work with to build these effective, scary stories. And that's one reason why I'm saying that this anthology is probably one of the best ones of the year, because this author did a fantastic job at doing that very thing. All of these stories contain characters that you are given enough information about to care about, to be concerned with, to want them to live. You know, you don't want the bad things to happen to them. And yet, when they do, it's very effective. Because you do care about them so much. And each of these stories is really about regular people, little bits and pieces of Americana there, going about their daily lives, and all of a sudden things will happen that will change them forever. Even if some of them do live in some of these stories at the end, trust me, they're not the same. They are forever going to be haunted and terrified and psychologically damaged in some cases by the things that have happened to them. But of course, as in any good horror collection, not all of them are going to live. But yeah, each of these stories is about regular people. We got a story about a pizza delivery driver who just happens to stumble upon the conspiracy of the decade concerning some very evil, nasty, hell-bent on destruction aliens, from outer space. We have another story about a star quarterback for his high school team. All-American dude. Really nice dude, really great family. But something horrible happens to him, and now he has to confront things that have happened in the past that he has no knowledge of, and find out how sometimes the sins of the father might get passed down to the sons in the most terrifying way possible. There's a story about three teenage boys and their lifelong friendship until one night, as they're separating to go back to their houses in this seemingly very safe, small city, American city, one of them disappears into the night, and nobody's ever found him, alive or dead. And once the secret of that story reveals, it unravels sometimes these sentimental feelings we have for those small town in America. Everybody thinks all these small town America is where you want to live. Everybody knows everybody. It's safer here. We look out for each other. We find out that that's not always the case. And this is what's great about all of these stories in this book. The author has a way of lulling you as he's introducing the world and the characters, he's lulling you into a false sense of security for these people. He's giving you enough background information where you're kind of wrapped up all warm and fuzzy in his descriptions, maybe thinking back to a time when you celebrated the 4th of July, how much it's like the one in that particular story. Or about the stress of having a job where you got to deliver a pizza in 30 minutes or less. So, you might have had one of those. But he lulls you into that sense that everything is normal. This is the way it is. You know these people, or people like these people, You're familiar with them. And then, through no circumstance of their own, he unleashes the hellhounds on them and puts them through things that would rip normal people apart, mentally, emotionally, and maybe even physically. And then they have to find a way to escape the horrors. And these horrors are all very different. Another great thing, but the author didn't stick to one, horror trope and just change characters up with kind of the same thing. They're all different. They're all very effective, and each story is engaging in its own way. I said this before about anthologies, that sometimes they can be hit or miss, especially when they're by different authors, because not every author is going to jive with every reader, all right? So some of us are going to like stories by certain people, maybe not so much stories by different people. And I love a good anthology that's written by the same author, because even though each story is different, and even though something horrific happens to each and every person in this book, it's still got the author's voice in it, right? You get the sense that he's familiar with his subject matter. He knows where he's going with these stories. He lets his mind kind of play around a little bit and think, how can I make this? How can I draw something really frightening out of this subject matter? And he does that beautifully here. Another thing I like is that all of these stories, I believe all of them are set like in the same area in the United States. The same towns are mentioned. And even though the stories aren't really connected as a whole, there are recurring characters in some of the stories. And I was really, I liked that little touch. I liked that little touch when I saw one character from the story. I told you about the pizza delivery boy and the aliens. And then this character showed up again in another story about a serial killer who wants to confess to everything, but he has his conditions. And wait till you see how that one ends. Talk about a twist at the end there. Yeah, that one's going to get you. Trust me on that. But each of these stories shows a little slice of small town America that just goes to show you that no matter where you live, evil can be lurking. Not just evil that men can do, but real life supernatural monsters. No, not real life supernatural monsters, but supernatural beings and the stuff of nightmares that could be alive in some of these locations and ripping the hearts and the minds and the bodies of all the citizens that happen to wander into its path. Yeah, this is a great collection of stories. I enjoyed it completely from beginning to end. You should definitely check it out. I will leave a link down below to Amazon if you want to purchase the book from there. I suggest you do The Cold Black. Also down below, I'll leave a link to my book of short horror stories, The Things That Happen at Night. And my Twitter and Instagram are in the description. Come join me on there. Come join me on the social media. We'll talk about creepy stuff together. I would love to have you. And as always, thank you for taking some of your time and spending it here with me. I really appreciate you guys watching. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.